And I like to try to always stay like several moves ahead. Everybody's talking about this right now, but I'm thinking more about what are after he's gone, one way or the other, whether it's impeachment or time or whatever. How did this happen? How do we keep this from happening again? And there's really a sickness in America that has been going on for a very long, really since its foundation. Many of my videos have talked about this, the love of money and the sickness that America has suffered. We're going to keep repeating the same mistakes by putting people like Trump in office if we do not have a change of heart as a nation. Everyone has a master, whether they realize it or not. You can't have two masters, as Jesus says. You'll eventually betray God for money. Now, I've said many times there needs to be a law that a $1 million asset limit law that no person is allowed to have more than $1 million worth of assets. And the moment you go over, you go to jail. Until you give it away, you stay in jail. And I've said this for like 20 years. This is the most important law that needs to happen. This is taking what Jesus taught and turning his teaching into law. So Jesus taught to sell your wealth, which is what you don't need to live, and to give it to the poor and then follow him. And the wealthy won't do this because they love their money more than God, and they will disobey him, and they'll make excuses. And so Jesus was talking to just that man. No, he's talking to all wealthy people. And so I'm talking about making into law what Jesus taught was right and wrong. Jesus said that interest was a sin. He said when you lend money, to not ask for anything in return. And that's interest. That's what interest is. And so interest is a sin, and our entire financial system is built off of sin. Of course, it's a very enslaving system then. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. This is the result of disobeying Jesus, the Son of God. This disobedience has led to a world of rampant sexual immorality and slavery. Sodom and Egypt, you could call it, for those who understand the reference that I'm making. Trump is he's the personification of every evil desire that your average American who voted for him has. The love of money, pride. Why do you think, despite all of the really disturbing details that are coming out, and I gotta say this, they need to stop with these redactions. There's no reason, no excuse to be hiding names of the email addresses talking about very disgusting things. They're clearly not victims, the ones who are doing the emails. This is what we're getting is a joke. They're showing us a cover up just going on right in front of our own eyes. And again, I like to think about, well, what about the future? Where do we go from here? How do we prevent this from happening again? We have a system that is just sick in every way. The fact that nobody in the Department of Justice is doing anything, that everyone around him is doing nothing. It's not just the fact that he's avoided facing justice for his very disgusting behavior. It's that he's the least qualified person to be in his position. I hope you all know who I'm talking about, right? I'm trying to avoid using names and stuff so the video doesn't get flagged. This is a person who is a proven fraud in court. He has lost in court over this. He had to pay back all those people for Trump University, which was a total fraud. He just tells people what they want to hear. Okay? It disgusted me when Christians were calling him the second coming. That man has never once even used the word Jesus. It's like he's allergic to say it, like he would melt. Like a demon would have a very hard time saying it. He won't say the word Jesus. In fact, he even had a hard time even saying the word God after his whatever assassination attempt, and I think that whole thing is just sketchy. How you had 30 rounds in a magazine and you only graze his ear. You got 29 more tries. If he was really trying to take him out, I don't think. Anyway. And how after all that, he said, I guess God saved me. I mean, it was like pulling teeth just to get him to say the word God. And yet Christians everywhere were just taken by him. And I've noticed the Christians who were taken by him were those who were most ignorant to what Jesus actually taught. Did you know Jesus was not a capitalist? That's right. Jesus was a communist. The early church were called communes. That's where we get the word. In the book of Acts, it describes that the early church divided their resources amongst themselves according to their need, and they prospered. Everybody that says communism doesn't work is lying. They're literally calling that passage in the Bible a lie because it's reported in the book of Acts that they prospered, that they were a needs-based society. Jesus was not a blue-eyed European white, model or a capitalist. He was a communist. At the very least, John the Baptist, who Jesus held in high regard, was a socialist. John the Baptist said that the man who has 2 shirts should give one of his shirts to the man who has none. That's socialism. That's a 50% tax. The point is, in this circle, we do not have... See, capitalism is moneyism, is greedism. So Adam Smith and all these cretins that developed the whole idea of capitalism said that, well, men are sinners, so we should make a system that is fueled off of sin, basically. That greed is the driving force behind our society. Well, we're looking at late-stage capitalism, and we can see exactly what it... When you build a society off of sin rather than faith, off of sin rather than holiness, we see now the results. All of our political system compromised, no justice, everyone living for themselves, everyone hopelessly enslaved to the system. And I don't mean to alarm people, but this is the real thing that's coming is, speaking of staying like 10 steps ahead, 10 years ahead, all of the wealthy right now are looking to replace human labor. The reason they're doing this is so they don't need people anymore. They can get rid of the population. That's what's actually happening. We have a clock ticking on us. Right now, they still somewhat depend on us to make things for them. But for the most part, once human labor has been replaced by robots, and once the military is completely automated by AI, whoever owns the AI and whoever owns the robots of that workforce is the one in charge. They know it. Why do you think there's such a race to advance AI? Because they know whoever has the best AI, whoever controls the workforce, is in control of the planet. They know it. Why would they keep a bunch of humans around that have no purpose anymore? Everybody's talking about... people like Elon Musk talked about a universal basic income. Another guy mentioned in the files, of course, talking about a universal basic income. They don't talk about how that's going to happen, where the money's going to come from. They just throw it out there like, and everything will be cheap. It'll be a utopia. Let me tell you, whenever I hear someone say the word utopia, I'm like, watch out, man. You know hell is coming. Hell on earth is coming whenever these evil people talk about it'll be a utopia. They don't care about you. Why? They don't care about anything but themselves. Why would they care about you or the idea of you? Why do they care? They're telling you that to pacify you, to make you feel like, oh, everything will be taken care of. Sure, yeah, we'll have universal basic... No. More and more people are going to lose their jobs to AI, to robotics. There will be nothing in place like a universal basic income. More and more people will be homeless. It will be harder and harder for people. Eventually, you're going to have a bunch of people just around that they don't need anymore. And if the military is completely automated by this point, which probably will be in the 30s, now you've got a Skynet kind of problem. The one thing that the Terminator movies left out was that Skynet was not being controlled by AI. It was being controlled by its human operators. It's wealthy, multi-billionaire human operators. That's who's controlling Skynet in our reality. It's not just AI just decided. You know, that's kind of sad that these... I almost don't even want to call them people. These wealthy jerks are worse than an AI that just decided humanity needs to go. At their worst. We've seen something, if for those who've been updating themselves on the latest file release, the 3 million documents, we see the same thing going on now as we saw throughout history of demon worship, worshiping Moloch, worshiping Baal. We see the same thing going on in child sacrifice, the sacrifice of innocent blood. You can see that Satan is at work. Satan is the god of this world. He is the warden of this prison, period. That's why every single leader in history has always been so vile. All the popes throughout the Dark Ages, popes and kings, and so many of our presidents, the world's most powerful men have always been vile. If you look into history, it's very hard. In fact, I'd say even impossible to say, well, that was a time where that king was just and that time was good. They were always greedy and vile. And they're always engaging in some kind of child sacrifice or some horrific thing. This is the devil at work. Now, I want to say this so people don't think I'm some crazy person. I have had a couple angel experiences throughout my life, verified by other people. The details that the angel shared was then prophetic, and other people, it happened. And I know angels are real. Let me put it that way. This is not a speculation. I was given some clues to this puzzle, and I know 100% angels are real. How much do I know personally about, how real are demons? Maybe I've had encounters with them and didn't know it. I don't know for sure. I do know angels are real. But I can definitely see the fruit of their tree. I can definitely see demons at work in this world. No normal humans do the things that's witnessed to have been, in the file release. Dismembering infants and eating their... Anyway. I miss the days when America was the good guys, I was born in the 80s, and 80s were a fun time. It was kind of a very naive time. Of course, during then, there was evil going on, and as a child, I didn't know. And in the 90s, to us, the population, it was still good times, right? It was still fun. There were still good shows coming out, and music, the quality of music was high, and computer games were getting more and more fun, and the 90s were a fun time too. But what we didn't know is behind the scenes, the people running the world were doing very great levels of evil. And so it seems like there's always a delay of a decade or two from when severe evil is in charge, and then when it finally hits culture. Now look at our culture. Now look at our music. All this satanic music and all this just a culture of... Even they look like monsters and freaks. Look at our society. Like visually, not just spiritually, but visually. It looks like a bunch of monsters and freaks. This is like at least a 20-25 year delay. I remember after 9/11, the country felt completely different afterwards. Now, I don't know if that's because my perception of the country shifted or if there was an actual shift. Perception is a very strong thing. I do know that I was one of those people in the crowd being called crazy because I said those buildings they were demolished. I don't... and I asked, why did Building 7 fall? And I asked, why was there no plane wreckage at the Pentagon? Why is the hole in the Pentagon 4 times smaller than the plane that supposedly hit it? Why is there no plane wreckage at the Pentagon? Why did they find a perfectly preserved passport of one of the so-called terrorists at the Pentagon site, but there's not a single bit of those engines, those steel engines, that would survive any temperature? So when I was, I think it was 19 when that was going on, I was asking all those questions, and everybody just said, oh, you're just crazy, you're so paranoid, you're a conspiracy theorist, and all that stuff. But I said, these are valid questions. Nobody's giving reasonable answers. And I remember even arguing with my dad, who was a grown adult, and I was 19, a very young adult, and I was saying, when they were announcing going into Iraq, for weapons of mass destruction, I says, there's no weapons of mass destruction. He's like, how do you know that? I said, did you see how Bush answered the question when they said, what evidence do you have to suggest they have weapons of mass destruction? It was his answer that told me everything when he said, no, that's national security. Nonsense. Nonsense. That's all I'm going to say is nonsense. I don't know if it's just some people have a gift for discernment and others don't. Some people can see lying when it's happening and others don't. I don't know. But I told my dad, I said, they're never going to find any weapons of mass destruction out there. This whole thing is a farce. It's all a lie. And he's like, there's no way. He goes, there's no way they could lie about something that big. I said, well, you're going to find out. And he found out. And I've noticed that there are people who are kind of at the front of the pack. They figure these things out sooner. And I'm not alone. I'm not the only person. I won't make it sound like that. Oh, and how far Alex Jones has fallen. I know that's another thing too. I remember listening a lot to Alex Jones back in the early 2000s. I think 2007 is when I think I started listening to him. And you know, I've heard all the characters out there: the David Ikes, the Alex Joneses, the all the just all of them. A lot. I was doing a lot of night shifts, quiet buildings during those years, and yeah, it's really unfortunate to see how far Alex Jones has fallen. The fact, and there's so many people that are just devout cult followers of this current liar and thief that we have in office. You know, they asked him already about the $500 million that was sent to his family's his. So he has this crypto business. It's a total front, and the royal family of Saudi Arabia, I guess, sent 500 million, $500 million to this company, which our leader owns 70% of, and his sons own the other 30%, in exchange for something to do with something AI related, how our missiles work. And Biden was originally made that offer, but the reason why they rejected the proposal to allow them to see this stuff was because he knew it would probably be sold off to the Chinese, and it would make the United States be at a disadvantage. It would be giving an opponent technology they shouldn't have, and so that was why the Biden administration chose not to. Well, Trump, one of the first things he does is takes a $500 million bribe and says, "Sure, have at it. I don't care if they sell him to China." It's like I don't. He's acting like he doesn't care what happens to this world after he leaves. He sold us out, guys. I'm saying this to the MAGA group. Now, for those who don't like him, I don't need to tell you anymore. You already don't like him. I'm right now. I'm kind of focused more on talking to the people who are hopelessly lost to this liar and this thief. He said he's exonerated. That the files didn't even mention him. He's mentioned 37,000 times. He's just lying, and he uses half truths to wheel his way around. When one of the reporters said, you know, what about all the other people around you that have also been implicated? He said, well, if it was true, then we'd hear it on the news. That's how I know it's not true. Wow, that's a logical fallacy right there. And all he can say is, you don't smile enough, when she just asked, what about the victims who don't feel like they've gotten justice yet? And all he could say was, not like a normal person where, you know, we'll look into it, or not even a BS answer, just he starts attacking the person who asked the question. You could tell he's emotionally pent up against this, that this has been irritating him for a long time. He doesn't want to pay any consequences for his lifestyle of selfish and I don't hurtful is not the right word when we're talking about grape, okay? That's beyond hurtful. But his life of evil, selfishness and evil. In the 90s, you know, he made jokes about it on the radio station about how other guys were dodging the draft, but he was trying to just dodge an STD. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And how he crapped on the soldiers all the time throughout his life. This guy is a pig. He's selfish, he's proud, he's a pig. Period. And the only reason he's prospering is because we have such an evil environment that allows him to prosper. See, this is back to my original subject. How do we prevent this? We need to create an atmosphere in the world where people like him cannot exist. This is another reason why I said there needs to be an asset limit cap for everybody, especially for those in political office. Now, the reason I said $1 million asset cap law is because nobody needs more than $1 million to live. You need a house, you need a car, etc. The reason why there's that so many people are against that is they have the same sickness that our current leader does. They have ego, they have pride, they want slaves. Money is work. That's what it is. And they want to have slaves. They want to have so much money and so much work from other people that they can even have an island of their own and have sex slaves flown out to them that aren't legal because they have so much money and resources that they can even do this now. This should not be possible. How it's not a law that anybody in office is not allowed to have more than a certain amount of resources is beyond me. Just for the purpose of national security, so they can't be bribed, they can't be compromised. The fact that he is so compromised, so blackmailed, and so in love with money, he is the worst person to be in that position right now. The narcissistic personality issues, the immaturity, the leverage, the blackmail. I mean, he's literally the worst person to be in that position, and it is showing us how this system has failed. How this system has failed. When I talk with young people, sometimes some of the games I play, they're all a lot of times very pro-capitalist. I'm like, you guys need to go work a crappy job for 20 years, live a little bit of life, and then come back to me. Because they all think they're all going to be billionaires, and I'm like, they have no idea. They are going to be a cog in the machine for the rest of their life. The rich will get richer, the poor will get poorer, and the same people, the same young guys, Generation Z guys, were telling me about how communism is evil and capitalism is the only way. I'm like, capitalism has 200 years to have lived, and it has failed. Whatever the solution is, it's not capitalism. It's not this current system. Now, someone would say, well, this isn't real capitalism because competition has been eliminated in every front. I will still argue that it's still bad. The reason is because necessity should be the highest priority of a society, not greed. Let me put this in Spock terms. The needs of the many outweigh the greed of the few. Okay? But we live in the opposite of that, where the greed of the few outweighs the needs of the many. I've talked many times about things that are necessary to live. Food, water, shelter, fire should be non-profit, or there should be non-profit options. There should be no more interest. You should be able to get a no interest loan through the government, a home loan, and you pay only cost on needs-based housing. You want a big mansion? Okay, fine. Go have at it. But prices would eventually narrow into that range, so nobody goes over that $1 million asset limit. We need an asset limit law, guys. It's the most important law. Other things like making interest illegal and all that stuff, I mean, yeah, it's the right thing to do. It also solves a number of other problems of coming to the point of an unpayable debt. The fact that working class people pay towards the interest of a debt that can never be paid off is ridiculous. Where's the leader that's just come up and said, okay, the debt is unpayable. We need to declare jubilee. Okay, we need to just declare bankruptcy as a country. Start from zero, get to a balanced budget, go from there. No more debt, lower taxes, etc. Why does nobody who gets into this position... That's how I knew our leader was a total fraud, because he was telling everybody what they wanted to hear, but he made no effort to help your average American. None. Said he's going to end the war in Ukraine. Lied. Said no new wars. just after that, not even 6 months out, he goes into Venezuela and declares an act of war by abducting the president and killing like 32 of their people. That is an act of war. Just because they know they have no chance and so they didn't do anything back. Just because they didn't attack us back doesn't mean that it wasn't an act of war. That's an impeachable offense. Only Congress can declare war. Where's Congress? You see the problems? Congress is compromised. They're under his either cult-like spell, or they're in the files, or they're bribed somebody. They're owned. Evil didn't make this move until all of its pieces were in place. They wouldn't have done this blindly. They wouldn't have just had this current guy in charge doing things like having his eye on Greenland or attacking Venezuela. They wouldn't be doing this unless they knew it was safe to do it first. We should have an atmosphere that does not allow this to happen. If nobody was allowed to have more than $1 million of assets, at least politicians. I mean, you could have it where private citizens might have a $10 million limit. Okay, and then people in politics can only have a $1 million limit for the rest of their life, so they don't get out of office and then end up like a billionaire like Lyndon Johnson. It's one law that would solve many of our I'm not saying it's going to solve everything. Okay, I want to talk to a deeper problem, which is a sickness of the heart. There are people, especially old people, that think they're going to... They think that they're immortal. They think that they're never going to face judgment. And after some of the health issues that I've had recently, it kind of shook me up. I've never had this kind of a health issue before. And it has, for the first time, caused me to feel mortal. It's kind of like driving. when you're a new driver, you feel immortal. You know, you feel like driving is like a game, right? But the moment you have your first accident and you realize how fragile these cars are, especially the faster you're going, you get a reality check and you're like, wow, yeah, wow, I need to be more cautious, careful, considerate, not so reckless and ridiculous. Like, this is not a video game. And so the driving gets better after you go through your first accident. And so lately, after some of these health issues that I've had, not knowing what it is and yet feeling severely, like, just knocked out, the doctor suggested it might be reactive hypoglycemia. I don't know. All I know is I could barely walk sometimes. I was sleeping 22 out of 24 hours of the day. I couldn't drive. I had like a 1 second delay time between when something would happen and then it would register. It was weird, man. It was like a state of just being drunk, weak, tired, all of it. And so they think that's what it was, and I'm not sure. But anyway, I've never had a health issue like that, and so it really made me feel mortal. Like, I'm at the middle of my life now, and just this realization of what are we doing here, guys? What are we doing? What are we leaving behind? All this evil that these people are doing, it's foolish. It's sad. They don't think they're going to face judgment, you know, these people. I've talked in the past what hell is, what judgment is. They are going to face judgment. For those who have not repented, had a change of heart, and asked God for his forgiveness and begged for his mercy, they are going to face judgment. It means a lot more when you show remorse at the scene of the crime, which is what we're in right now in this life, than after it's over and the trial is already going through and now you've got your sentence and now you show remorse. Your remorse means nothing by that point. But to show remorse at the scene of the crime while you're still here in this life means a lot. One of the things I've noticed is a lot of the people who are criticizing our leader, and I'm not trying to defend him, okay, I'm just making an observation about the culture that we live in and how it's corrupt in more ways than people realize. Many of the people who are attacking him would do the same things. They would do the same things. Not maybe exactly where they're sitting right then and there, but if they were on the path that our current leader was on, they would. I can see it. I can see it. They'll have their big expensive house and their expensive vehicles, and I can see the pride and the vanity. I can see the love of money in these people who are criticizing him. I'm thinking, you're no different. You would do the same thing. Oh no, I would never be a monster like it. You would do the same thing. I see unclean hearts accusing another unclean heart. And this is really the root of the problem. I want to talk about one of the stories that happened on that subject when I was about 19. So, this is one of the angel experiences that I had. I had a dream, and in that dream I was in downtown Riverside, California. That's where I lived at the time. And on the streets, I saw a friend of mine there, Tobin, and one of his friends, Alex, and it was downtown Riverside. They were harassing some homeless person. And beside them, I saw a woman angel standing next to them. It looked like one of those Mary, like Mary, Mother of Jesus. It was a woman with a hood, all that stuff, and she was super bright. And I heard her say, "Tell them to ask for a pure heart." That was it. Real simple. There's no devil at work here. It was, this needs correction, this hard-heartedness. And so then anyway, I wrote all of it down on my computer, typed it all up, saved it. I saw them that Sunday at church, and yeah, they go to church. I know. What kind of church do you go to, man, where they harass homeless people rather than help them? I know. That, again, it is the sickness of people in our country, okay? Love of money, hard hearts, etc. Anyway, I saw them at church, and I didn't say anything because I'd never had an experience like this before, okay? And I think they're going to think I'm crazy, so I didn't say anything. They were both there, I didn't say anything. The next week goes by, and then now we're at church again. The next Sunday now it's like a week and a half. And I see Tobin there. I I saw them at church. I still decided not to say anything. Already weeks gone by, and they said that the church said there was going to be like a picnic, and so we went to this picnic after church, and we were there. We were having like hamburgers and who knows what, and then talking, and Alex starts going on laughing on like a jerk with Toby. It's like, hey, remember that homeless guy we were messing with? And I listened to him talk, and just cackling over evil, basically. And I had the goosebumps, you know. It was real now. And I said to Tobin, I like Tobin. I didn't like Alex. I like Tobin. I said, Tobin, can you come home with me? I got to show you something on my computer. And so after the whole, I think we left. I can't remember if we drove together or drove. I can't remember. Anyway, he came over. I still lived with my parents at the time. I was like 19. And it was a 2-story. We went upstairs and we went into my room. And I said, now before you open this file, I want you to look at the date when it was last saved. The date modified. And he saw that it was about a week and a half ago. I was like, okay. And he opened it up and he read about me describing what they were doing a week prior. But I saw this a week before it happened. I saw it the Wednesday. So they were doing this on Wednesday. And I saw this in a dream the Wednesday prior. That's when I saved it. That Sunday when I saw it after everything happened, I didn't tell them anything. It hadn't happened yet. Weird, right? Maybe it would have been like a rooster crowing effect to them. But that next Wednesday is when it happened. And all I know is after he read that, he was just shocked. We were both silent. Because we both realized this is real. This is not just some intellectual exercise about God and heaven and angels and judgment. Like, this was real. It got 100% real for him that day. It was 100% real for me the moment I had that first dream. This is real. And heaven can see the evil that goes on in this world, and it hurts. And they want us to stop. And so that angel told me to tell them, implying, I guess, Tobin and Alex, to ask for a pure heart. Free will, you know, they can't just be angels and robots. They have to choose to stop doing evil. And so I still feel like that, even though that was specifically meant for Tobin, there's lessons there. And I feel like that throughout my life, this is something I try to tell people, is you need to ask God for a clean heart. This is literally what Jesus talked about many times, about if you clean the inside, then the outside will be clean too. Many times he talked about the cleanliness of the heart. And what did he also talk about? That the Jews who all followed the laws were still vile at heart. And so I want to talk about this. The asset law that I'm talking about will only prevent situations of harm like we have, like with this island and kids being trafficked out there. Okay, it will only prevent harm, but it will not solve the problem. Okay, it's because people's hearts are dirty. That is the root of the problem of that people face during this experience in this life. I wish the world would have a change of heart. I wish that it was such a change of heart. And we do need these laws in place. And let me explain why. It's laws are for the law breakers, not the law followers, okay? It's so the devil has no place on this earth. It's so the devil has no way of hurting God's people anymore. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this recording. I am tired of seeing God's people be hurt. I'm tired of seeing God's creation being perverted. I'm tired of it. Jesus called this the sinful generation. Like he was a time traveler that came from the future in a time where humans don't sin anymore. The way he describes us as sinful generation, like that's unique to, like it's not always that way, but it is right now in the time that he's talking with them. And I like to be optimistic and think that is so, that in the future there is a time where people just don't sin anymore. As a worker in the field, I know that all I can do is talk to people in my nearby town and make recordings on YouTube. That's all I can do. I wish I could reach more people, because I know that God is working within me, and I wish that God could reach more people, I guess is what I'm trying to say. When I thought, when I didn't know what was going on with me health wise, I thought, man, am I dying? Is it a heart issue? Is it a, I mean, what is, am I dying? Is it a brain tumor? Which I don't know. It might be a brain tumor. I don't know. Maybe I am dying. I don't know. But one of the thoughts was, I can't go yet. And the reason was, I haven't done everything I'm supposed to yet. I don't know why I just said that, but it's true as I thought about it. There's the work that I was designed for and made for and built for is not complete yet. I can't go yet. People have got to end their love of money. This is one of the biggest obstacles whenever I talk about this stuff. So, the reason why people want a big house and a big car is pride. They think I'm better than everyone, so I should have a house that's better than everyone. Or have a car that's better than everyone because they think that they're better than everyone. They can't just take a normal house and a normal car. The other issue is they're fighting against an emptiness that they have. They don't have a relationship with God. They don't have a connection with God. They don't have the joy that comes from God. And they're fighting against this emptiness and this boredom with this game that they're playing. They've turned this life into a game, which is try to own slaves. You know, for a free society, and I've said this many times, I have severely scolded the founding fathers of this country and their hypocrisies and their lies and their nonsense, proclaiming that all men are created equal and yet still owning slaves. Hypocrisy. Creating no legal framework so that things like adultery would be at least a felony. In Old Testament times, it was punishable by death. It's a severe crime. It's betraying your marriage vows. It's betraying your family. Adultery is a serious crime that has been destroying the lack of consequences for committing adultery has been destroying the American family, and a destroyed family is a broken people that depend on the state to live. This is all by design. All the founding fathers were, in most cases, adulterers or slave owners. They were all greedy, selfish. They loved money. They referred to God, but they were deists. They weren't Christians. They never mentioned Jesus. Thomas Jefferson did worse than mention Jesus. He rewrote his own Bible and took out all the miracle stories and rewrote all the New Testament the way he wanted it to be. That's the hubris that Thomas Jefferson has. So Americans idolize him by calling them the founding fathers. Jesus said to not call anybody father because we have only one Father, our Father in heaven. That's it. And so it is a blasphemous title to call the founding fathers. I hate even having to use it just so you know who I'm talking about. I usually say it's the guys who made America. These guys were the worst, man. The average soldier who fought in that war for them, they didn't fight it. Young guys did. And that trend has continued on in American history for centuries. Yeah, the guys who wrote all these speeches and stuff, they made lots of money. They had lots of land. Your average soldier had PTSD, probably missing limbs, and their lives either were the same as it was under King George, worse in some cases after having fought a horrible war. We see this in our wars in our time too, Iraq war, all these other wars, where the soldiers pay the price. And who benefits from this war? Even if it was just to steal oil from somebody. Who benefits from this? It was never the American people. It was never the families of the soldiers. And so this trend's been going on since the beginning. I do not hold the guys who made America in any high regard whatsoever. They were just clever men. They were just wise at doing evil. That's all. The world has been full of these people. They had a giant Atlantic Ocean to give them a chance to do what other people throughout all of history would have done. Other people who loved money, who loved power. There's been this strange cult following that I do not like in America where people are choosing their American patriotism over Jesus. And like Jesus said, you can only have one master. You'll eventually betray one for the other. I am a Jesus follower before I am an American. You know that? Because when you die, that American flag isn't going to save you from anything. And I would challenge anybody who takes their faith in Jesus to make sure that that never gains a foothold on them. That nationalism, that the love of one's country never becomes more important than the love of one's God. You shall have no other gods before me. The number one commandment. Probably the number one thing that people fail at, too. They love money. They're in love with their ego, or they love their country. Not to say that having a brotherly love for one's country is bad. I'm just saying in terms of by deprioritizing it to things that are more important, like the love of God and who God is, causes a person to love an evil empire. One of the things I noticed that no matter whoever is in charge, left, right, whatever, this person symbolizes your average person who voted for them. This person is an enabler for that voter's sin. Now, I've never voted. I would have voted for Ron Paul. I've always liked Ron Paul. I do. I've always watched a lot of his podcasts, and I like Ron Paul. I've never voted. I've never seen the difference. Lesser of two evils is still evil. I don't feel like I'm responsible for... if nobody voted, if there was no voter turnout, then nobody could say that this person was the democratically elected, leader. Nobody could say that. If only 5% of people came out. So this whole you need to vote, that's wrong too. Boycott. Go on strike. Boycott. Don't comply. Don't play their game. If it's a rigged game, stop playing it. If both sides are rigged, don't play it. It doesn't matter if the, in quotes, other guy wins. They're going to do the same stuff. Haven't you learned anything in the last 30 or 40 years? That whether it's left or right, they do the same things? That the government keeps spending more, whether it's left or right? That we still go to wars, whether it's left or right? Everything is still the same. These guys are puppets. And when you participate in their little sham of a game, you're giving validation to their rigged game. Stop playing. You at least save one day of your life, right? Not wasting it going to some booth so someone else can vote for you anyway. There's surface level problems, and then there's deep level problems. And when I was talking about cleaning one's heart, that's the core of the problem. I've never loved money. Even as a kid, you could say as a kid, grades are your money, right? It's your status, your approval rating from everyone, at least from your parents. Maybe some parents they paid money to kids for their grades, and so it just teaches them to work for money. It's sad because it doesn't teach them to work for something they enjoy doing, which is really the only reason you should do something, because you have to live, or because you like to do it. And unfortunately, we've got a world full of prostitutes who, men and women alike, they sell their body, their soul, their time for money in jobs that they hate. And they're slaves in a system where they'll never get ahead. And they know it. Generation Z has got no chance, man. They're not going to be owning a home. I want to talk about that too briefly, since I haven't talked about it in this recording. So, rent is basically slavery. And let me give you an example so you can see that. I was talking with a neighbor of mine, and he was talking about, man, some of these wealthy families, they come and they buy a whole city block, and then they rent all the houses out. And I'm like, yeah, I said it's slavery. Those are slave quarters. And he had this real, because he's kind of one of these guys who hasn't figured it out yet that capitalism is evil. And but anyway, the little light bulb went on when he realized exactly what I'm talking about. I said, one person works, the other person takes the fruit of the labor. It's slavery. It's just now you just choose your slave quarters and where you do the labor, but it's still, the system of slavery is still here. Slavery never ended, it just expanded. And he was really thinking about it. And I said, and a mortgage payment to the bank is, all that interest is basically just rent. And if rent is slavery, it's basically slavery to the bank or slavery to a landlord, but it's got to stop. It's got to stop. We've got to stop this slavery-based system. I really liked how Jesse Ventura said it when he said, there should be no billionaires, and how he talks about no matter what kind of work you do, you could never work for up your way up to $1 billion. And I like it. There's the only way you get up to that amount. Well, you could do it through trading, which is all percentage based, so that's possible. But the only other way is through corruption. It's through crime. Or inheritance. But usually the inheritance, the parents committed crimes in order to get to that amount of money, and it's true. Nobody gets to that. So money is work. Money is labor, and so nobody gets to that level of labor on their own without hurting somebody. So I do agree with what Jesse Ventura said when he said there should be no billionaires. There shouldn't be. Money is power. Also, not only is money work, but money is power. Why do you think that you keep getting these terrible choices at the election booth? Because the people who had money plastered their name and face everywhere, and they had the resources to defame everybody else, and they were at the top of the list. Everybody knows them. Money wins elections a lot of the time. Now, in this last election, I could say that it wasn't so much about money, it was almost about preparation. So, I'm neither left or right. I need to make that clear. The far left, they were constantly beating people over the head with how you have to tolerate all these freaks and weirdos wanting to be around your kids, telling them to ruin their genitals. And so the right side of the country was getting exhausted from that. They were getting so exhausted from this very strange, far left mentality, and that just fueled them. It fueled them. The reason why our leader is in office today is because of how stupidly the left was behaving. And I wonder if that wasn't by design too. It sure seems beneficial. I miss when America was the good guys. I miss when you could look at American looking symbols and see an American soldier and feel like that's an icon of safety. Know that there's a fair process for justice. When I was a kid in the 80s, man, that's what you felt like when you were living in America. And, when I signed up for the Army, I felt like I was doing this great noble thing to help protect the good guys. And it's so sad, it is. It's so sad. I was just 16 when I signed up. I was 17 when I graduated basic, and it was at my first year. I wasn't even 18 yet, even when I was already in. And that's another subject too, right? How that happens, right? But my brain kept growing, and I realized I made a massive mistake, and I realized this whole thing is corrupt, and I started to learn a lot. I miss it when America felt like they were the good guys. I do. It's like we shifted from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire in the last 20 years at some point. Definitely within this administration, but I think it was even earlier. And I've also seen the very ugly side of our government. Okay, I've seen how they lie and how I've seen it, man. Those three-letter acronyms, man. Always playing games. I haven't even mentioned them because I'm trying not to get, disappeared or flagged or whatever. But they're always playing games, doing evil, always lying and stealing. We don't need institutions like that. It's one of the reasons why we're not the good guys. We don't need them. We don't. They'll say we're essential. No, they're not. Just build better anti-missile systems. That's all we need. Keep someone else from nuking us. Keep someone else from overpowering us with the military. That's it. We don't need these three-letter acronyms going around causing riots in other countries and overthrowing other countries and meddling with other countries' affairs so that the next leader and puppet that goes in gives us a better deal. We don't need any of that. Because that same evil meddling is now being done to its own citizens. What a surprise. What a surprise. It's like if you have a vicious dog that's been biting that neighbor and that neighbor and biting all the other people. True story. Okay, this is a true story. I knew that analogy must have come from somewhere. So when I was a kid, my friend, he had, his dad was a canine officer, and they raised German Shepherds. They bred German Shepherds. And so, anyway, the female that they had, her name was Sybil. The joke was, Sybil Shepherd. And that dog, since it was a puppy, hated me. This is the only dog that has ever not liked me in my whole life. There was something wrong with that dog. I told him that too, even as a puppy. I mean, it was funny and cute as a puppy how a little puppy was trying to kill me and hated me even as a puppy. And no reason to. I never did anything to this dog. It's just this one specific dog hated me. And as it got bigger, this became a problem. If I ever came over to my friend's house, they had to do a whole thing, make sure the house was clear and make sure that Sybil was out in the backyard when I came in. One time when I came over, he mistook Sybil for the male dog, and he thought, that the male dog was inside and Sybil was outside, but he got him reversed. Sybil was inside and the male dog was outside, I guess. And when I came into that door, let me tell you something, that dog immediately went to try to kill me. I mean, I ducked into the bathroom as fast as I could, and that dog was trying to destroy that door. That dog wanted to kill me. I told them there's something not right with that dog. I kept telling them. They didn't listen. I guess I don't know. Maybe it's because that dog wasn't mean to them. He was just mean to me. Now, obviously, I'm making an analogy about when you have a government that's mean to certain people, but not you, not yet. Well, what happened later? I guess I'm kind of spoiling it. Yeah, so then after years later, after we were older and I wasn't uh, going over there anymore, that dog, that Sybil, ended up killing their other dog, their collie, just killed that other dog. Just they thought it was random. I'm like, that's not random. That is the meanness of that dog is now going into other directions you didn't think it was going to or intended it. And they still kept it. That to me, I don't know. When one dog kills another, it's time. It's time. And they still kept that dog. It wasn't until that Sybil finally attacked the mom in the family that they finally put her down. So this reminds me of like all the stuff going on right now with this army that's harassing American people on our own territory. Everybody who's for this is like the person who likes seeing this dog tear up someone else's dog because it's not them. This hard-hearted. Well, they're criminals. They shouldn't. The penalty does not fit the crime of what they're doing to some of these people. And more importantly, from their perspective, they are hurting and killing Americans. That is a huge problem. If you were a real American, you could agree with that. If you're not, you're, well, excuses. Excuses. That wild dog who's hurting other people that you're all for, and I'm talking to the thick-headed people out there, that wild dog is going to attack you and your kids someday. And you're going to be like, how did this happen? Well, dummy, you had a whole timeline leading up to it. I warned you, I warned you, I warned you that dog is not, there's something wrong with that dog. You need to put that dog down. There's something wrong with that dog. And it got another dog killed, and it almost, I mean, who knows what could have happened to the mom if it didn't go down right when that dog attacked her. But same thing. I'm seeing it in this country. This comes from pride, foolishness, hard-heartedness, no empathy. That's another problem too, this lack of empathy. I think that empathy must have been conditioned out of us. Just as schools are about obedience and not knowledge, and schools are just to teach little children how to show up at a place on time and do what your boss tells you, and to really stress out what your boss puts on your desk, so to speak, and to work for someone else. That's what school is about. It's about obedience. It's not about education or learning or none of that. Why they call it education, I don't know. Just call it obedience. Call it what it is, okay? It's obedience school. Obedience academy. So from a young age in this culture, we are beat up mentally in a lot of different ways. These older people that retire, they don't even know what to do anymore. They spent their whole life as a slave. They don't even know what to do. They're lost. Some of them just keep being a slave at some company. They're retired. They don't need to work anymore, but they'll still be working at some company because they don't know what to do. They don't have any hobbies. They don't even know how to do anything for the sake of joy. I will never be one of those people, man. They literally sold their soul to survive. I'd rather be dead. I remember in school, they had these little programs where they come by, literally trying to just soak people with capitalism at a young age, where if you sold enough door-to-door cookies or candy or whatever, it was also bad for your health. Selling drugs. They turned us into little drug dealers is what they were doing. Little capitalist drug dealers. And if you sold enough, you get these little fuzzy furball things with these little eyes, and they were like your points. And if you got enough of those points, then you get all these different prizes. And if you got like the biggest one, you get a limo ride. I'm like, that is the, oh my God, that's gay. I mean, seriously, what kid cares about a limo ride? Well, a lot of them were starting to. I didn't care. I didn't do any of that stuff. I didn't sell anything. I was like, this is a dang pyramid scheme scam. Get out of here with your evil capitalist ways. Is kind of how it was when I was in middle school. I had nothing to do with it. And when I learned that all you needed was a C to get to the next grade level, all I ever got in school was C's. I had the ability to get A's. I didn't care. I understand it was jumping through hoops, but I saw all of my peers from a young age. I saw it, and I was like, this is a sickness, man. They care so much about the approval of their parents and their peers, and I'm a good little boy. I'm going to go to good little school. and get into student loan debt like suckers, and now they're slaves to the student loan debt. I'm only saying this to try to help people get out of their slavery. First, you have to identify the problem. But one of the root problems of this is the love of money. It was drilled into us at a young age. Somehow, I messed up. I didn't get that. I didn't take that pill. It kind of reminds me of the book Brave New World, you know, and the one of the characters who plugged their ears during all of the brainwashing at night. You know, I guess something happened. I just didn't care. It was just meaningless. Jumping through hoops for nothing. And I wish more people shared this more accurate view of our reality. Now, someone say that just means no. See, the people who run this world, they have the same on this subject. They have the same view that I do, and it probably baffles them why so many people haven't revolted and taken all their wealth. And you know, like they probably because that's what they would do. It baffles them that everybody just keeps being a good little slave. This is from decades of conditioning since childhood. It goes beyond just child abuse. The system that's been put onto us, it has enslaved the world. You know, my dad, he made this ridiculous comment one time. I'm always disagreeing with my dad. My dad was wrong about 9/11. He was wrong about the Iraq War. I mean, he's always wrong. He's a counter indicator. He talked about how he's referring to other people. I don't know what he was talking about, but you just got to keep them busy or else idle hands, they're going to fall into sin. I'm like, wow. I don't have that problem. You know what I just don't have a job now, so now I'm just going to go into buying prostitutes and drugs. I mean, I don't have this what do you so he has a mentality, I think, a lot like the Christian people in America have this feeling where, you know, the evil saying, if you don't work, you don't eat. It's ironic because none of the rich people work. They're the biggest moochers on society is rich people. They take the most from everyone and contribute nothing. And it's ironic because these rich people, they don't work and they don't eat. I'm sorry, they don't work, but they eat more than anybody. And even the patriarchs of the Old Testament that you know, in that time, they didn't work. They just watched other people work. That's not work. I'm managing them. Oh, that's what you do. That's your work. You're managing that. You're watching them work. I see. Yeah. What a bunch of crap. So they have this mentality like that people are supposed to be slaves. If you think that people are supposed to be slaves, it will just keep a world of slavery. I do not think that Jesus came here to enslave people. I think he came here to free the slaves. This is one of my criticisms about Paul, is Paul does not bring any scathing criticism to the wealthy or to the slave owners, but Jesus does. Jesus is continually condemning the wealthy. He made it very clear that the wealthy do not inherit the kingdom of heaven. They don't even have a chance. That only the poor have a chance. Woe to you who are rich. The comfort you've received now is the only comfort you will ever get, meaning you're not going to heaven. But blessed you who are poor, because the kingdom of heaven belongs to you, meaning it is amongst the poor, only amongst the poor, are those who are capable of going to heaven. Jesus continually condemned the wealthy, but Paul didn't. Paul just told the slaves, hey, just go along. Go along with it. God put them there. If you disobey them, you're disobeying God. I can't, man. Jesus never said that. Paul did. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get on a tangent about the differences between what Paul and Jesus taught, but I want to stick back to the subject, the sickness at heart. Well, no, you know what? That is part of a sickness. That's the sickness on the Christian side, and that's the side of don't resist evil. Don't just let evil do what it wants and walk all over you and let it corrupt your family, let it corrupt your mind. It's this mentality. It's just a weakling mentality. It's a spirit of fear and complacency and compliance. Being afraid of being rejected by your friends and family as being the weirdo who thinks differently. I wouldn't want friends who thought like that. Who thought that slavery is acceptable, okay, or just the way it's supposed to be. I wouldn't want friends who wanted to own slaves. It was, well, I don't have any friends that want to own slaves, but they do. They don't realize it, but they do. Anyone who wants to be rich, money is to make people do things for you. Pretty much. Money is work. It's either the product of people's work, like a house is the product of people's work. It's either directly work, like fixing something, repairing something, or prostitution or whatever, or it is the product of human labor, but it is work, either past or present. And so when someone wants money, they want more work than they need to live. They want slavery. They want excessive amounts of labor from other people, is what I'm getting at. I wouldn't want friends that want slaves. That's not a good friend. They have a sickness. It's the love of money that got all these characters into where they are now. Into the devil's den on these little islands with these underage people. It was the love of money that got them there. It was their pride. Pride is the root of pretty much all sin, other than maybe madness. Pride is the root of all sin. It is their pride that got them there. And pride always leads to destruction every time, both in this world and beyond. Pride always just leads a person to... It doesn't always lead to destruction in this world, but it does lead ultimately to destruction of one's soul, as Jesus talked about. Fear him who can destroy both body and soul in hell. It is always frustrating when you see some of these characters like Bush Sr. who did these horrific things to these young people and how they got away with it. They ended their see, from the atheist standpoint, this is one of the reasons why I couldn't be an atheist, and why when I was in my 10 years of doubt, I had a hard time staying in doubt. Part of it was when you lose a loved one in the despair of thinking that they never mattered. They didn't even exist. They're just gone, and that's it, and that's it. So that was that thing that was difficult when I was in my doubt. But the other was the horrible levels of injustice that the world that we live in, that the people who commit the worst crimes get away with everything and there's no punishment. And so if you need two good reasons to have faith that there is God and that there is a heaven and that there is justice and that there is hell, as I've talked about in past recordings, a place of judgment, your desire for justice in this world and your desire for good things to be in an eternal place we call heaven, those are two excellent reasons to have faith. Faith is choosing to believe something. It doesn't mean you know, it means you choose to believe it. One of the things that always annoyed me about the atheist world is they look down on people who have faith, and it's like, I guess they haven't suffered enough in life. I'm serious. It's like an adolescent thing, this proud, strong adolescent thing to look down on people who are just trying to get through this horrible world. And they just decided, you know what, I'm just going to believe that God is good, and that he's just, and that he's fair, and that there is a heaven. Just this, I'm just going to believe this. And it didn't need any arguments or evidence, it's just, I'm believing this. That's it. This is why when Jesus spoke and he said that his sheep hear his voice, it's because he knew there are people out there who were going to believe him whether they saw his miracles or not. These are the people I'm talking about. These are my people. I'm not talking about the hard-headed robots who would only believe if they saw a chain of evidence. I don't want these people. These people are no good. They're robots, borderline. God could make an infinite number of robots, but a child is somebody who chooses him on their own. Who has faith. Faith is a choice. I thought it was interesting how in the 1800s, the 18th century, there was this huge movement. All the slogans and sayings back then, they replaced the word faith for freedom or liberty. So when America was being founded, that's when it was at an all-time high. You know what liberty really means? The freedom to sin. That's what it means. That's what the founders meant it. And that's what people today really think of it as. They don't... How many times did they ever say that the freedom to help out a poor person? No. It's the freedom to be a proud, arrogant prick and take as much money from other people, meaning as much labor from other people, to enslave as many people as you can. That freedom. The freedom to do evil. In the 18th century, the word faith And the importance of faith was being replaced with this freedom. I've learned that when it comes to honor and money, there is no honor. I've learned that if you America, the last 200 years was a great experiment. We can already see now we need laws. We do. We've been in a lawless society for centuries. We need laws. We need laws for adultery. You know, we need law. We interest needs to be illegal. We can see in every way this experiment of just lawlessness, and what happens that humans will not, at least in their current spiritual state, cannot handle absolute or at least high levels of freedom. They can't. I had 3 dogs when I lived out in the woods for 11 years. And my dogs did not have the freedom that a coyote had. The coyote had, the whole forest was his home. My dogs only had the fenced area. Someone said, well, they were very oppressed. They lived in a very oppressive communism. Yeah. And all their needs were met. They had good food. They were never cold in the winter. They're always inside. Never hot in the summer. Always next to the air conditioning with me. They had provision. They didn't have as much freedom, but they had provision. That fence that I put around my yard was to protect them from the world, and it was kind of to protect the world from them. Jenna and her nosiness and her friendliness, and Toby would have ate up all my neighbor's chickens, no doubt. Toby was a Belgian Malinois. He would have ate up everybody's chickens. So that fence is a lack of freedom, was restrictions of freedom. It was meant to protect others and to protect them. And instead they got provision instead of freedom. Now, people have been taught in this very evil society that loves money more than God that, oh, you're talking about communism again. You're talking about provision. Provision is better than freedom. I'm American. Okay. Then go be like that wild coyote who's got to freeze his butt off every day, starve to death all the time, struggle for every dollar you make. You go be that coyote. I'm talking about creating order. I'm talking about creating a world where people are taken care of, where people's needs are the highest priority in a society. Am I the only adult in this room? Is everybody else just a bunch of children trying to sell candy for little toys to have a limo ride? Why does it feel like I'm one of the only adults? Whenever I see all this drama going on YouTube, I'm like, these are like little kids. Our leader of our country is like a man-child. These are like little kids. Where are the adults? You know? And don't get me started about the boomer generation, most spoiled generation in human history. No generation has been more spoiled. Had the best quality of life in terms of cost of living to income ratio. And they are the most spoiled generation. And the reason I need to bring this up is because they are the biggest supporters of our current liar and thief. Their pride, their selfishness. These are people who sit on multiple properties, rentals, and enslave young people. These older people don't contribute anything to society. You know, it killed me when I heard our liar and thief say on an interview just a couple weeks ago that he could crash housing prices. It makes it sound like that's a bad thing with the word crash. How about reduce housing prices to reasonable levels where younger people could actually buy a house? But he says, and he uses the word crash to make it sound like that would be a bad thing. He says, but you know, then there's other people that, you know, they're so proud of their house. It's worth $500,000, $700,000, and they're so proud of it. Now, to him, that's nothing. A guy who just took a $500 million bribe, you know. But anyway, he says, I don't want to take that from them, from the older generation that has more stuff that doesn't contribute anything. I don't want to take that pride from them. Do it. Reduce housing prices so young people can actually have a home and live with dignity. Do it. It's moments like that where I'm like, what has happened to this broken people? I remember even when I was, even in the 90s, there were a lot of things that you knew that if someone in the government did something, man, there would be riots and revolution. I was around during the time of the LA riots. I remember that. It was something. And I'm like, what happened? Have people become so complacent with bread and games, they've taken the bribe? It's like a homeless man who has a little phone, who plays his little games on the phone, and as long as he can get free pretzels in the morning and he can play his games on the phone, he doesn't care if he's living in squalor. Not to know that if he actually had any bit of dignity, he could be living in a home with dignity. I'm talking about making an effort to change the world for the better, because there's a lot of people that they're complacent with just bare minimum. And they just stand by idly when people do evil. Right now, this country is going through a very big test. We just had one of the biggest scandals in history, not just this country's history, in world history, when these still heavily redacted files released. This is going to allow me and everyone else to see where is this country at in terms of accountability, in terms of does its justice system work? Is it able to manage itself? Because if nothing comes from this, and I don't mean just finding one scapegoat to blame it all on and put it all on him and everyone else is exonerated. I mean, everybody that we know has been involved in this stuff for a long time, face some level of justice. If I don't see that, then I know, and I'm sure many others will figure out eventually at some point, that this country is, without any argument, a lawless, completely lawless society. I mean, half of its laws are missing. Like I said, there should be laws against interest and against adultery. There should be laws like that. But we're going to know now that even the laws we have on the books don't even matter. And what happens when people realize that? And it's scary too, because America has the most powerful military in history. People don't know this. I think I need to say this. Do some research is all I'll say in summary. So basically, America won the game. Okay, it's 850 bases all around the world. It's 11 carrier groups. It's more than $1 trillion a year budget. Its military is unmatched. The entire world could gather together and try to fight against America, and they will lose. And who knows what hidden technology the United States does have that they have not revealed. That's another thing I need to say. We saw during the Venezuela operation how there were no casualties on the American side. We just went and took another country's president, killed some of their people, no casualties. We shut down all their air defense, all their radar, nothing. That sent a message to the world. You guys are behind in technology. You will lose. America is an empire. And we have these other rogue states like Russia, China, and so on, and they know. This is why they try to avoid the United States everywhere they can, because they know. And it's why I say it's kind of scary to think that the world's most powerful military is being led by some of the world's most evil people. And now, as we are about to find out, is this truly a lawless society? That's what's really at stake here. I really hope that characters like Rand Paul and other characters, I'll watch, giving statements and making statements and stuff. I'm hoping that there are still people like this involved in the political system. I feel bad for guys like Rand Paul. I do. I'm like, they seem like they don't have enough friends and allies and too many opponents. If people's hearts weren't so hard, if they had empathy, a lot of these problems wouldn't be here. On the subject of immigration and all that stuff, I just want to voice in. There's two sides to this. Okay, when I visited California for a little while, and it'd been more than a decade since I'd been there. I'd moved away, lived other places, and came back, visited for a little bit, and it was very different. Nobody really spoke English anymore. And the attitude that I saw of a lot of these immigrants was not one of humility or modesty or, I'm just glad to be here. No, it was one of arrogance and waving the Mexican flag and what are you doing here, white boy? I literally had people ask me why I was over by this one government building, like, why are you here? So I'm an American citizen. I need to get in here. It was a very strange experience. And so I understand on one hand, you have like an invasion going on. And this attitude that they have is not one of humility. If they had a humble spirit, I wouldn't care if they were here or not. I really wouldn't. If they're here to do, work for, I wouldn't care. But it's this hostile attitude of arrogance that they had that I was like, this is bad. And so when this all stuff started to break out, I really didn't care. I didn't care because I just remember thinking about that attitude of those experiences I had. But then I thought about it a little bit more and I thought, this is hurting people though. There are other people I'm sure everyone's getting caught in this net, good, bad, and all like the problem is that it needs to be refined so that it's just the bad getting caught in this net. They are hurting people who are not of the attitude that I described. You know, there are people breaking up families. The definite line in the sand is when they start killing Americans. We have the right to protest and we have the right to bear arms. We do. That guy, that one nurse guy, he didn't ever draw for his gun, and it was after they took his gun off him. He did not do anything. They sprayed him with pepper spray. He was not really resisting. He never reached for his weapon. After they took his weapon off him, they shot him 10 times, many times in the head. 10 times. That's anger. 10 times is an emotional. That is not self-defense. That is anger. And that's wrong. He was an American citizen. Yes, I know his history. I know he's not a saint. I know he was going around other things. He was doing his own strange form of protest. Okay? That kind of stuff shouldn't be happening. I don't know how anybody could be behind that. Whether you agree or disagree with the guy who was doing it, that is just wrong. And I never thought I would live to see the day where we could see like an army occupying its own citizens in America, really. Because that's what's happening. They're militarized. Wearing masks? You only wear masks to hide your identity because you're going to do wrong. Because you're not publicly accepted. That's why you have to wear masks and have no ID. That's how you know it's wrong. And they know it. We all know it subconsciously. I'm a millennial, and I don't know what happened to us, guys. Actually, I'm borderline. I'm almost Generation X, but I'm still technically millennial. So I want to speak to Generation X too. What happened, guys? We were like this generation of people that we didn't take. Man, we were free-spirited. We didn't take no crap from anybody. What happened? Was it having children? And I don't have kids, but I guess everyone else did. Was it having kids that made everybody's spirits weak? Okay with evil going on? And I'm saying this a little bit for myself too, because I remember how I was 20 years ago. I'm so glad the stuff going on now wasn't going on 20 years ago. I would have been one of those guys. That's all I'm going to say. All right? One of those headline guys. It take a bunch of people. I'm sorry, my dog's barking for some reason, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm not having the house broke into while I'm babbling about how much of a badass I was when I was young. I'm actually glad this is going on now that I'm a little older and I'm not gun-ho. But I'm still wondering, though, where are those gun-ho people? I remember. Oh, that's right, because they co-opted the right. They co-opted the right wing. That's right. That's what they did. They got the right wing into this cult-like following for a fraud. And the guy is a fraud. He's literally been convicted in court for fraud. He had to pay back all those people from the university that he set up, the fake university that didn't credit them anything, or it was something where it was a total of a fraud university, and he took all their money and it was of no benefit, and he had to pay them all back or something like that. He's a fraud. He's a snake oil salesman. He just lies. That's all he is. And he told everybody on the right what they wanted to hear, and he embodied their brutal, hard-hearted, cold-hearted, selfish, greedy, money-loving aspect of themselves, and that is why they voted for him, because he empowered their sin. And when the left has a candidate, they do the same thing but in a different way. They empower all of the sexual immorality, wanting to kill your own child and fornicate recklessly and make lives with other people recklessly and mutilate your genitals and create sexual confusion. So that is what people on the left feel empowered when they get their guy in charge. And so we go back and forth, and this has been like that my whole life. And what I'm noticing is these people enable and empower people's sinful side. So right now we're going through I'm gonna be real. I think that honestly the left wing stuff is irritating, but the right wing stuff is dangerous. When we were going through 9/11 and the Iraq War, that was, dude, I remember I was pissed all the time at all these dummies who would not look at basic arguments like, why did that building fall speed? Why did Building 7 even fall at all? Why was there no plane wreckage at the Pentagon? All these questions. Why did Silverstein, whatever, change his insurance policy to cover, terrorist, whatever, plane impact attacks, like a month or whatever before the attack. Why? Or the reports of Mossad and their 5 agents that were celebrating the attacks, all confirmed to be intelligence, or 2 of them confirmed to be intelligence operatives. They had prior knowledge that was going to happen. They didn't do anything to stop it. So I was just really mad that everybody was on the right wing was just so gun ho, and went and they killed 750,000 Iraqi civilians. Got 60,000 American soldiers killed, and for what, you dummies? And I mean it. You are dummies. You were fooled then. You're getting fooled again. You gonna sacrifice more of your children to some self-righteous, ignorant cause, or are you gonna listen to wisdom? What are you gonna do? The left is not responsible for the mess this country is in right now. It's the right. It's the people who voted for him. When this liar and thief, when he said he's gone back on all of his promises, by the way, all of his campaign promises, he's gone back on them. No new wars. He's already trying to start wars. Get the budget down. He's been doubling the military budget. Said he's going to release the files. The first thing he did was say, "What, are you still talking about those files? That's just a hoax. They don't exist." Remember that when he was saying they don't exist? Stop talking about it. And he tried shaming that reporter for daring to bring it up. Are you still talking about that? Yeah, we're talking about the biggest scandal of probably history in terms of political corruption for the most powerful empire in history. Yeah, we would like to know if you are corrupt. We would like to know if all the people around you are corrupt. We want to know what's in those files. Remove those bloody redactions. Let us see the names of the people to and from that were. It wasn't the victims that were emailing about how that was a cute and sexy underage so-and-so. It wasn't the victim's email. Why would you hide that unless you're covering it up? Department of Justice, why would you do that? So glad this isn't going on 20 years ago, man. Oh, man. They have done some serious social engineering, because I've been a hermit, so maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see it in this newer generation. I don't see it. I don't see the spark of not tolerating this, the spark of when you're taking this lying down, the spark of don't tread on me. I don't see it. Have they engineered the fight out of us? I mean, I know we've been struggling a long time with lower testosterone levels and lower masculinity, and I get that. I know that's been a problem. Is that why we're not seeing any kind of backlash now? I sense that this country is coming to a possible split for either very good or very bad. Right now, it looks like it's going to be bad. We need a change of heart as a people. We need laws to protect people from evil that greed and excessive wealth creates. We need a system that is more secure in terms of fighting against corruption. Now, if there was an asset limit law, at least it takes bribery and that kind of stuff off the table. But we need a system to where... So the question is, in this case right now, if there are no investigations being done when there are absolutely credible reasons to investigate, to further investigate the claims in these files coming out, why would you not investigate them? We need to redo a system to where it's more fail-proof, so that if one branch fails, something else picks up this. So we have to redo this thing. The guys that made this country hundreds of years ago, this was their best effort. They could not have known what kind of technology we would have. Almost 3 centuries later, they could not have known how people would exploit certain things more or less. Now, some of them didn't even think. I think George Washington didn't even think that it was even going to last. What did he say? You'd give it 10 years? Something like that. I don't think he was joking when he said that. And that tells you something, The clock is ticking. Those robots are being built. AI is taking more and more jobs. The robots are being built. The workforce is being replaced. The military will eventually at some point be replaced by AI. Just to stay competitive with other countries, not thinking that the real threat is now you have an AI that is owned probably privately and used publicly. I don't know how they're gonna deal with that. We have a political system that the public has no control over. Why is it we can't just pull this guy out of office the moment? Why is there no accountability? Why is it when all these people have been lying in court, like Patel and all these guys saying that Trump isn't like even mentioned in the files? He's like mentioned 37,000 times. There's all these lies they've been getting caught up in, and there's been no accountability. Where I remember anytime I was ever in a courtroom situation, man, I was afraid of perjury. I know, because I'm a mere mortal, right? Rules for thee, not for me. If I committed perjury in the tiniest little thing, I'd be in jail. But these people just unbelievable. Under oath, speaking to the whole government and just lying straight to our faces. And so far, I've seen no consequences. This is because of money. People have been bought off. People have been threatened. And we need a system that is compromise proof in terms of when you have a compromise, when there's any evidence to indicate that a leader or person in power is compromised, meaning they're being blackmailed, they are immediately removed from position for national security purposes. I always used to hate that when they'd say for national security. That usually means to cover up for some creep who's evil and taking advantage. But now I would love to see it how national security is absolutely served by we can't have any people in office who are compromised. If there's any evidence to indicate that a person could be compromised, they're gone. We bring someone else in. I've always said it'd be better just to have a lottery system or like your jury system for our leadership. Just have you seen people on a jury? Yeah, I know they're not going on island trips, raping little kids or dismembering them. Even a jury system would be better. Even randomly selecting our leaders would be better. Let the people vote on things like war. And if you vote for war, you're on the draft list. If you vote against war, you're not on the draft list. We don't even need an executive branch anymore. We really don't. Get rid of the executive branch and let the people vote on war. And let them be on the draft list if we're going to war, if they voted for it. Put your money where your mouth is. Should almost be a requirement too that every politician will have to send one of their family members to the front line if we go to war. That's right. If it was really worth fighting for, you'll send your son to go die for it. Oh, it's not worth fighting for it? Then don't send someone else's son to go die for it. Jerks. So amongst all these issues, what does it really come down to? Is like, so when somebody talks, like even as I'm talking now, people do in the back of their minds, they wonder, what does he want? What is his goal? So I don't think I've ever talked about that, so maybe I should. I feel like that's kind of evident from enough of the recordings I've done. So before I leave this world, I want to see it be a much better place. That's, I think, the summary, and I've even felt that this past couple months when I didn't know what kind of why I'm having these health issues and thinking, am I dying? I would like to leave this world a better place. I enjoy working on my creative projects whenever I'm able to enjoy working on such projects. I don't love money. I've never pursued money. Everything so far I've ever done in terms of games or whatever I've released for free. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with charging for your labor. Nothing wrong with that. My point is, my personal life is I try to enjoy the things that I do and I work on and the hobbies I have. And that's just me personally. I have not been allowed to have a family. That's just how life has been. Lived in the wrong places, met the wrong people. Just that was never allowed to happen. But I would like to see the world a better place before I leave it. I look forward to heaven. And yeah, for years I did struggle with just cutting to the chase and just going there, right? I think you know what I mean if you read between the lines when I say that. I did struggle with that. It's kind of the cheater's way, right? Just cutting to the line, but I'm just saying this is a bad line. It's like if you're at Disneyland, right? And it's like the best ride ever. Why wouldn't you cut in line, right? I mean, it makes sense, right? You end up being put in a line to a ride that's not all that fun or not all that great. I'll just put it that way. Could have been better if you stayed. Maximize the potential of what you were and what you were created to be. And rode out the tough times. I remember when I was just a boy living in the woods with my 3 dogs. That was just who I was. And who I'll always be. went through a lot of difficult things in life that other people shouldn't have to. I hear about things that went on, like with these victims. I see, and I also, more importantly, I see the country that has been created by these monsters. These are the people that have engineered our country. Their spirit, their mentality, and their actual political plans have engineered this hell that we live in. And I would like to see that disassembled and never to be put back together ever again. I would like to see a better world. I may not get to live in that paradise, but I would at least like to see it before I go. So, that's my motivation, that's my goal. Until next time.